Here we go.
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition. Here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pod.
Hey, welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod, and we've got our Obi-Wan Kenobi finale episode here, which has finally come to a conclusion. And we also got a very special guest joining us today from Orbitkey. His name's Kirk, and we're going to be talking to him about some exciting new news. And we've got returning voices. Our co-host Blake, Phil, and Bryce are joining as well. So, without further ado, let's kick things off here.
Another happy landing.
All right, welcome back to the show, everyone. And Kirk, it is it's great to finally meet you.
To our new guest.
Yeah.
Yes, great. It's great to meet you guys as well. I've been listening to the podcast for quite some time, so it's great to be on board.
Awesome.
Oh wow, fan! That's awesome.
That's great. That's so encouraging to hear. Yeah.
I'm always surprised that people actually bother to listen to us. To be entirely honest.
I know, right?
It's lovely though. Yeah, good to have you, Kirk.
No, thanks for having me.
And we've got Blake. Welcome back. Of course, co-host of the show. Just say hello for everyone can hear everyone at home can hear your voice. Hello.
Hello there.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're forgetting that second little part. There's never been an episode more appropriate for a good.
Yeah, that's
hello
true,
there.
right? Like we don't know if we're getting any more, so you got to get them in now.
And Bryce, that hello there, chat.
Hello there.
And we got Phil as well. Welcome back, Phil.
Hi.
Chat.
Phil, you're doing it wrong.
Oh, no, General Kenobi.
There we go. You are a bold one.
Oh, I was imitating Luke. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
So, Kirk, man, thanks for coming on. I've been super excited to have you on here with us because, obviously we were in touch for quite a few weeks now. And there was that exciting news on the May the 4th that we were all talking about here on the show, and you guys released these crazy key organizers. And did you want to just kick us off with just sharing the new news and talking about this new lineup here?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, firstly, like everyone at Orbitkey is just so thrilled and so thankful for you guys supporting the launch. It's not often that we get to hear people talk about them for such a lengthy period of time, and the passion that you guys have for Star Wars, as well as going into a deep dive into the designs and everything that our team have put like a lot of hard work into over the last year and a bit, is so cool. So yeah, a big thank you for everyone, and hopefully the key organizers are all in your hands, and some of you have been enjoying them so far.
I've got mine right here.
I also have mine right here. Yeah.
Mine are in my other pants, but I have been using it.
But it's with me in spirit.
That's right.
They are
Right now.
they're fantastic, honestly. Like it wasn't until I actually put the keys in this thing and realized that, dang, this is like really quite useful. Like I don't have the jingle in my pocket anymore. I don't have something poking at my at my shin or my thigh, I guess. So
for me, it's protecting the phone screen.
yeah, that too. Yeah,
that's a good point. Yeah,
absolutely. So
yeah, it's definitely one of the big things that at least because the key organizer itself has been one of our oldest products, so we made it back in 2013, so it's been around for a bit of time, and those are the main pain points that we tried to get rid of, is to no scratches on your stuff in your pockets, and obviously no key jingles as well. I think I can't remember who said it a couple of weeks ago, but someone said they have like 20 keys on their keychain. They're like a
Holy
security
moly.
guard or something. But I remember that was passed around. But hopefully one of our key organizers can reduce a little bit of the pain for that one too.
How would you do that? Well, like you have to stack two of them together and like to make it wide enough.
Yeah,
that's a lot of keys.
It is a lot of keys, and I'd probably be questioning how many doors you'd have to open at that point. But you can get an extension post on the inside of the key organizer and fill it up to your heart's content, I guess.
I'm kind of curious. Where did the idea for the Star Wars collaboration come from?
Yeah. So I think back in January last year, we approached Disney and we started off with a collaboration with the National Geographic key organizer. And once that went really well, and we did that as a bit of a limited run, then everyone at Orbitkey, especially myself and a few others, are massive Star Wars fans. So we had the opportunity to see what else that we could do, and we really wanted to try and push for something for Star Wars, especially because of how big how much new content there is coming out these days. And we wanted to really kind of fuse the two things together, and we're so happy to be able to finally get it out, especially during this time where, the prequels are coming back to popularity again, and even more new fans are coming in too. So it couldn't have been a better time, and we're so happy to bring it all together.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I mean, there's so many Star Wars shows coming out in the future that I look forward to other things that you guys might come up with for that Star Wars collaboration. So, obviously, this podcast episode in particular isn't going to be released until Wednesday, but you guys have some new exciting news about the Obi-Wan Kenobi show and some of the new characters that might be showing up on these key holders, right?
Yeah, yes. This is the May the 4th launch was an awesome one, and it was really good to introduce the range. But this is the one I was most excited for, especially when we were planning it a year and a bit ago, or just under a year or so. And that is, we're bringing the Obi-Wan Kenobi key organizer and a Darth Vader inspired key organizer to the range, and they come out again on Wednesday, so June 29th. And we've essentially created two different key organizers to expand the collection to 6, and they're inspired by Vader and Kenobi. And for Kenobi, we kind of made it off the early concept art that we were given for the Kenobi show. So his rugged brown, darker clothes, which I think were a little bit darker compared to what we saw in episode 3. And then Vader, obviously, his wardrobe is pretty like iconic and the same as what he's had throughout the original trilogy. So he kept it really stealth black. And each of them, compared to the last key organizer at least, have a bit of a motif on the front of the band. So, for example, the Vader one has a red line, which represents his red lightsaber, and of course, Kenobi blue on his too. So, I can't wait for people to get these. It just continues the range, and we've injected a little bit more of our Star Wars fandom as well into it. So, like for example, on the inside of the Vader key organizer, we've got the quote, "Impressive, most impressive." I think that's from episode 5. I can't remember actually.
Yeah.
It escapes me right now. And then on the inside of the Kenobi key organizer, we have the quote, "Hello there," of course.
The classic.
I really wanted to put in, "It's over, Anakin. I have the high ground." But, it was a little bit too long, so I got the "hello there" quote in the end, and I was very happy to see that at the end of the show too.
Awesome, yeah. It's awesome. I guess Orbitkey is quite a small company, right? Because you've had a big hand in writing up these character cards that come with the organizers and the inscriptions on the inside and stuff, and is that right?
Yeah, that's right. We're a pretty small company. We're based in Melbourne, Australia, so the other side of the world, and there's only around about 38 of us or so. So we're not too big of a company, but a lot of us are big Star Wars fans, and being able to like write all the character cards, put all the different little Easter eggs on the inside of the key organizer, as well as I had a fun time learning the language Orbitkey as well too, to write all their names on the inside and on the character cards. So we really wanted to make stuff that was like subtly resemblant of the Star Wars character or the characters. And the biggest thing that I kind of asked ourselves when we were designing everything was, what would these key organizers look like if these characters were using key organizers in the Star Wars universe? And although I don't think Darth Vader would really like open any doors with keys and stuff, if he did have
you never know.
It might look like this. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
You might accidentally scratch your lightsaber. like with your keys.
That's right. Oh man, it's the worst. It doesn't buff out.
Yeah, that's right.
Anakin, once again, you've scratched your lightsaber. I'm sorry, Master.
Well, I mean, we all love the design of these things, and so yeah, just a big congratulations to you guys again for this collaboration, this launch, and yeah, really excited to see these new lineups. So yeah.
Thank you, and yeah, it's without you guys that it wouldn't be possible to support. So we really do love it, and we really appreciate it so much.
Oh, when it comes to Star Wars merch, we're all about that. Yeah, we're happy to help.
That's true.
Merchandising. So Kenobi. I mean, these things are inspired off of Kenobi. So let's start getting into the depths of this episode, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right, so part 6. I mean, mirroring the George Lucas trilogy in the format of 6 episodes. I mean, we've had this crazy cool Disney Plus series, which I believe is possibly even the most successful one that they've come out with to date, as far as the Star Wars ones goes.
Really, more than Mandalorian, you think?
I think it's been, yeah, I believe so. I think I saw some headlines that it's been the most watched series on Disney Plus to date, or something like that, or maybe it was
certainly
just like
the most anticipated.
Yeah,
I would imagine it has a lot to do with just Kenobi being such a recognizable character, more than the guy with the gray armor.
Right.
Boba Fett's brother, yeah.
I mean, the episode starts off with of course following the events of the last one, and Reva's looking for Owen. Did any of you guys confused at how did she get there so quickly?
Actually, the thing with me is just that during the show, I had forgotten that she was injured the whole time. I think that was the only thing that kind of tripped me up when I was watching the episode, is that there was some moments where she felt very underwhelming. I'm like, man, she's supposed to be a pretty badass character.
Oh, they tried to do the Kylo Ren trick.
Yeah.
She's hurt, so she's not as strong as she's supposed to be.
The Force
but we're not going to explain that very well.
The Kylo Ren trick, well said, yeah.
Everyone knows that if your abs have been injured, the Force is not as strong with you. And so it kind of took me for a loop, because they didn't really set it up again, because the episode was last week, so I had time to kind of forget that specific part. Mm-hmm. So. But yeah, that's the only thing that took me for a loop. I didn't actually think about how fast she was there.
Bryce,
it's because for some reason I feel like when people usually use the Force, they really have to flex, and they're like, right? So if you got a hole in your chest, it's kind of hard to do that. Unless you're like Yoda, then you don't have to, because you're calm. You use the Force. You don't gotta make.
Well, I don't know. Episode 5, he's kind of got to flex to lift that X-wing. He's trying pretty hard.
I don't think to the same extent. He doesn't have the ugly face like a lot of people have to make to lift things.
Right.
We didn't. Bryce needs to write an in-universe book. If Bryce was actually a Star Wars character, he'd be writing a book about the Jedi and stuff, and go well, I think they have to use it by flexing harder. So if they're physically injured, they're just less capable. And
I think there's many ways to use the Force, and just being physically strong. Maybe that's just maybe there's a super strong bodybuilder who can just flex so hard.
Kirk, what are your thoughts on this this pace of timeline? I mean, we finished the last episode with Reva basically injured in the dirt, and then the next thing we know, she's on Tatooine, and Vader's still in pursuit of Obi-Wan and the rest of those rebels, or whatever you want to call them. What were your thoughts on that when you first saw it?
Yeah, honestly, I completely forgot that she got impaled by Vader in the previous episode. So when she rocked up at the end, and she was I think she was in line to get some information off Owen or something, if I remember.
Yeah. And
then the only time I remembered that she was stabbed was when Owen hit her in the chest later in the episode. So I don't know how she got there. I don't know what happened, but I don't know, maybe she just used some magic or something. But yeah, I wasn't too sure.
Yeah,
it's the movie magic.
It was a Force projection the whole time.
Yeah.
Luckily, you can always say, every weapon in Star Wars is kind of self-cauterizing. So, kind of a bonus when you get shot or injured. It's gonna.
That's true, actually.
You're not gonna bleed out.
Right.
I guess now that she's on Tatooine and a certain someone showed up at the end, that he might get some tips off her on how to strengthen up the core.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, we'll come back to that one.
Remind me to bring that up later, Bryce. Yeah. Obi-Wan's speech to the survivors is a heartfelt and genuine when he says that they are the future, and he looks at Leia and puts emphasis on this. And my mind just jumped to the look that he gives Luke on the Death Star when he gives up his body to Vader's blade and sacrifices himself for what is intended to be the greater good of things. But it just made me think of that scene when he said he was insistent on that everyone else was the future, that he looked at Leia and Leia looks away when he says it. And I just thought it was a really cool moment. But did any of you get like big feelings when it came to that speech that he gives?
I think the episode in general was probably the most heartfelt Star Wars product in the last little while that actually maybe was able to resonate emotion in general. But yeah, I thought it was very good. I thought the acting felt sincere, which was really nice.
Mm-hmm.
You say that, but I feel like people are really attached to all the moments between like Din Djarin and Grogu.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to compete against, Baby Yoda.
I guess what
adorable of a dad and son. Yeah, hard to compete against that. But I think like what in Boba Fett kind of made you feel emotions, kind of what in, I think this episode was pretty good for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Yeah,
for sure.
Especially because I think Obi-Wan himself realizes that the Jedi are, they're not these heroes that are going to come save. Like they're kind of gone, right? Like they're not something that should be.
Yeah, their time is done.
Kind of like resurrected, right? Yeah, it's really time for someone else to carry the torch until,
until the Jedi can return. Yeah, absolutely.
So,
yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah, because that ship full of people. I mean, some of them are Force-sensitive children. We know that there was a kid named Koran, which was a little bit of a nod to one of the expanded universe characters, Corran Horn.
Corran
Horn. Yeah. One of Luke's, I guess. What is he? An apprentice or something in the temple?
Yep. And then he becomes like one of the, the Grand Masters, of the Jedi Order.
Right. Yeah. Big influential
cool.
character.
That's a good nod.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, it was a cool nod, and it just that combined with the idea that a lot of them were Force potential / people like Roken who are just normal average citizens of fighting on behalf of this Jedi Order long gone kind of thing, and really just against the Empire because he hates it. Right. Gives you the idea that okay, this is another seed of the rebellion. And when they did the Vanity Fair coverage, I believe it was Vanity Fair, for all the new Star Wars shows, Andor and all this and that. The headline, I believe, was "The Rebellion will be televised," and I was like, "Oh, well, Obi-Wan Kenobi, yeah, that's kind of a curious show to throw in the mix of this headline." But now I get it. Now I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense because this whole ship that gets away full of people is probably full of people that end up joining the rebellion. Much like characters like Enfys Nest from Solo and. The seeds that were sprinkled there. And then, of course, Saw Gerrera's band of people and, people in the Imperial Senate like Mon Mothma and Bail Organa working against the Empire. Like, it's not until Star Wars Rebels that we all see it come together and really become this rebel alliance. So, that was kind of cool to have those nods for sure.
The character, I can't remember his name. But it's Ice Cube's son plays him.
That's how I know him. Yeah.
Even though I don't remember his name, I kind of grew attached to that character. I really liked him.
Yeah.
I thought he was good on screen over the episode.
Yeah. He came across as really genuine.
Yeah.
I felt
Roken.
like.
Yeah.
That's his name. Yeah.
Ice Cube Jr. I thought the character was super good, and the acting that the actor did was fantastic as well. But that was probably one of the. I kind of hope to see the character again, possibly in another show or something.
Straight Outta Compton.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, he plays his father, Ice Cube, in that movie. Yeah, it was a great movie. I love that movie. No, but you're right. I hope you see that character again. It was a good character. Yeah,
I didn't realize that was him who played Ice Cube in that. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, did you just think that they did some insane like de-aging on Ice Cube?
To be honest, I didn't really think about it. I knew it was an Ice Cube, but I thought they just casted some random person. Like, I just didn't realize it was his son.
Yeah, it was his son. Yeah, it was a well casted choice.
Like, what planet did they leave from in this? Like, which they escaped from?
What was it again? We brought it up last time. It was. Oh my gosh.
I love the new. What I love the most about the show.
Well, it doesn't matter. The bit I was gonna do a bit was like straight out of Tatooine or whatever.
You can actually buy shirts like that. Like they're fan made shirts on T Public and such, and they've been, they look like vintagey and straight out of Mos Eisley or whatever.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
subtly repping your shirts.
I was not the one who made those.
Josh's Redbubble account.
Yeah. So Vader goes after Kenobi despite the Grand Inquisitor's plea to not give up on hunting what seems to be this large group of the rebellion on board. And I just thought it was such a great character choice to have that moment where you have one of those, clearly that guy knows better because Vader's emotions are getting the better of him. And because it's Vader, they still just do what he wants. But I thought it was kind of funny imagery when you see this little like escape pod pull away from the bigger ship, and then this giant, massive Star Destroyer just rerouting course to this little floating like thing.
Yeah, man, just so personal. Hey, you just can't really see the bigger picture. So it was nice to see the just jumping ahead, the spoiler of the Emperor at the end. Kind of almost feels like it's trying to call him out, making a wrong call there.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. Maybe, I don't know if it was my ears that was deceiving me, but I think they reused the voice of the deck officer that Vader chokes out from Episode 5, when the guy that jumps out of light speed too early or whatever.
Too close to the system.
Too close to the system. Yeah. And I feel like I heard his voice in the background. I was just like,
it's not Piet, it's the other guy.
No, yeah, it's the guy with the stash.
Ozzel.
Yeah, that's what it is.
The exact full name.
I think so. I think it's Admiral Ozzel. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I think I don't know. I feel like that's a little Easter egg that I found. Maybe could be wrong. I don't know. But
I love it right now.
Someone should send us an email about it.
Just
someone at home screaming the answer. I was like, we can't hear you. Send an email. swescapepodcast@gmail.com.
Or leave a screaming voicemail. That'd be preferable.
Yeah, there's a link to the voicemail. Yeah.
What were you saying, Kirk?
I was gonna say, like, I love the whole chase sequence at the start as well, just before the escape pod goes off. It quite reminded me of like just looking at something straight from like A New Hope or Empire Strikes Back. The way that they shot it, where there was like a miniature or something. I thought it looked really, really cool.
Oh yeah, you're totally right. And that reminds me, they played the chase music from Empire Strikes Back when the Star Destroyer is going after the Falcon.
They did.
Yeah, that's a great call out. Yeah, absolutely. That was
maybe
really
that's
nice.
why it looked like it.
Yeah, yeah.
The feels got you.
I mean, it transported me back to a certain video game called Shadows of the Empire.
Not this again.
Where you play as Dash Rendar.
Wait, what is this?
Rebellion.
What is this game?
Shadows of the Empire.
Bryce, don't do it. It's a trap.
I've never heard of this main character. No. I'm not gonna do it.
I got to say, Owen and Beru's defense of the homestead was pretty awesome. Their lies to Luke about Reva, telling him that it's a Tusken raiding party, and Luke's line mirroring echoing his line from Empire Strikes Back to Yoda, how he says, "I'm not afraid." And I thought that whole thing was so well done, and the fact that when she comes after him, they did it in a way that he never sees her and the lightsaber. You know, he's always just out of
about it.
Yeah, pretty clever about it because, you know, I feel like that exposure to a Force user or a Darksider, I guess, should be that initial Vader Obi-Wan Kenobi duel, right? And then it kind of goes on from there. But I thought that was really well thought of and something that maybe might skate under the radar. But I wanted to call it out because I thought I really appreciated that. Because if they did it so that Luke ever saw Reva with the lightsaber, I feel like it would just kind of break my head a little bit.
For sure. That would have been a huge issue. And like, I feel like they did enough where I'm like satisfied with it. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna like, yeah,
absolutely.
I have to say though, sorry, what was that, Phil?
Oh, I say I love that we know nothing about Luke as a child. I think it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's just a regular person. Like there's nothing special about Luke in this show.
Yeah,
he's just that farm kid.
Yeah,
that doesn't want to be a farmer.
With Leia, they made it a big point to make sure that the attributes that she has, her personality, relatively stays the same from when she's like 10 to all the way until she dies, right? Versus Luke, he's just like some kid on some dirt land, just like cleaning up whatever trash Owens has around.
But I almost feel like that is in line with who Luke ends up being, right? You know,
he
ends
meet
up
him
being
as
this kid
Sam,
who has been babied his whole life because everyone's just protecting him, and he's gone nowhere, so he has no life experience.
But that's a whole nother season.
Yeah. So
it's only one more season.
Totally makes sense. Yeah.
But I was going to go to Tasha Station to pick up some power converters. This is the highlight of the day.
Whiny.
This is the highlight of the day, Tasha Station, you know.
Going into town.
Yeah, going to town.
What'd you guys think of them trying to hold up and like hold up in their homestead and try to fight off Reva? I was very surprised to see Beru was the one who would do that. That actually took me really off guard as what we know of her character, because she serves like we only see her serve milk and we see her like fixing sandwiches, and that's about it.
Oh man, but they're farmers. Like I feel like they're alone on that homestead, and if I would not be wandering on to some random farmer's place in like the middle of nowhere, Texas, right?
Yeah, that's a really terrible idea.
Right, like especially if I'm quick, like after their son or daughter, it's like
right. I guess the issue that feels a little weird to me, just because I think of like my aunt and uncle and their farmstead, and my aunt is just like the sweetest person who is afraid of mice.
Right,
I just couldn't picture her defending the farm.
It was funny. I had a moment where when she picked up the blaster. Well, she was the one who actually, pulls them out of the hidden compartment and everything. And
she wanted to stay.
Yeah.
Wanted to run.
I just thought it was so great. I was like, this is a huge character improvement, because the only other time that we've seen her is this young, other than A New Hope, that is when Owen introduces Beru as his girlfriend, back in Attack of the Clones. And then we just see that brief appearance after in Revenge of the Sith when she takes baby Luke and goes up to Owen and they have that moment in the sunset. But we really don't know a whole lot about her character, and I feel like
not really.
Yeah, I wish I knew a little more about like maybe expanded universe material that may have hinted at the fact that this is what she's like.
She showed up in that Obi-Wan Kenobi comic book that we read before the series here. Right. When we did our breakdown.
Right.
But that was pretty brief, I think. Yeah, it was mostly focused on Luke and Owen.
I personally enjoy the fact that she's like just a blank canvas. You can kind of do whatever you want with the character. Yeah. So I didn't have any expectations. To me, like Blake was saying, there was just from what I remember, she was just there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she seemed like a sweet aunt.
I didn't even think of her as anything. To me, she was just character to show that Luke had an aunt and an uncle instead of just having.
Yeah, right. Yeah, fair enough.
She was just there to like make a family.
I think my biggest gripe was she didn't wear enough denim. Because I rewatched New Hope not that long ago, and she's wearing denim on denim on denim.
The Canadian tuxedo.
Yeah.
Kirk, what were you? What were your thoughts?
I think that's really unique
Yeah.
for her character. No one else wears denim in Star Wars.
Yeah, we do.
Anyway, go ahead, Kirk.
Do need a bit more denim. Well, what I thought you said there was actually pretty awesome. Like when we look at like Baru, like I at least assumed her to be like this defenseless, sweet person, but
yeah, that was my assumption.
She reaches for the blaster first, and then like on the other hand, I always thought Owen to be this person that didn't really care too much about Luke. He was all rugged and hard, but you saw in that confrontation with Raver at the end, like he said a really important thing. Like I think she asked, "Oh, do you treat him as your own?" And he says, "Oh, he is my own. Like he is my own child." So you kind of got like interesting, like bit of a dichotomy between the two. And I thought it was really sweet to see, rather than just Kenobi stepping in and kicking ass and stuff. Like it was really cool to see like these two parents come together for a kid that they brought into their family and do kind of the opposite of what I thought, at least, that they were doing, and it gave him a lot more depth as a character, I felt.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
And you know what? I'm just thinking about this now. With that level of capability of defending themselves, like I want to know what happens when they showed up, when the Empire shows up in Episode 4 to get Luke. Like it must have been some sort of firefight.
I mean, he's like 7 years old at that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was the first time Stormtroopers didn't miss.
Yeah, I mean, like the blasts were way too precise for anything else than Stormtroopers.
Yeah. Well, they were after the droids, right? They were after the droids, but
yeah, that's right.
It makes me wonder. Maybe their execution wasn't just so much of a capture and straight up kind of execution style thing. Maybe they actually did put up a fight before they went down.
Yeah.
You know,
Could be possible.
Makes it a little more interesting. Other than these two kind of people that just get killed and now it's that kind of thing. It adds a lot more emotion to this whole show. In fact, has just added more to those characters, which makes us be able to grieve their loss later, right? Which you know it was always great to get more backstory to those characters. Like in the same way that I feel more sad for that very quick kind of boom, Alderaan's gone, nobody cares, because we don't really know enough about that planet. But now we've had all of the Clone Wars, we've had the Kenobi show, you know, we've had Rogue One, we've had multiple appearances of Bail Organa to the point where now we know that character very well, and now we actually can grieve his loss as a character that we knew as like a substantial, influential person in Leia's life who obviously meant a lot to her. Which plays up in her character quite a bit as well. So anytime that
she might feel good about getting rid of her cousin, though.
yeah, that little twit. But yeah, I mean, like obviously, like I appreciate any moment that deepens character, and like you said, Phil, I mean, she's a blank slate. Baru. It was just a cool moment when she pulls out the blasters. I was like, hey, that's something Padme would do. It's good to know he's got a cool aunt. So the fight with Vader and Kenobi was unbelievable, and I was so worried about this for the longest time because obviously we care so much about Star Wars, all of us, and you know we have our reservations about some of these moments that we may not think will fit well into the existing mythology, with stories being built in the middle of other stories. And you know, it gets tough for obviously story makers to kind of juggle all that stuff, but I feel like this whole endeavor was handled very well towards the end. And the dialogue that kind of brought those two characters together again for the fight scene that we saw in this episode was perfect. Just home run perfect. There was 3 lines exchanged before the fight happens. And it was, "Have you come to destroy me, Obi-Wan?" And Obi-Wan echoes his Revenge of the Sith line by saying, "I will do what I must." And then Vader echoes his Star Wars Rebels line with his duel with Ahsoka and says, "Then you will die." And then the fight kind of happens. And it was just so good. I was like, man, that is great. You know, parallels everywhere.
Yeah, the whole sequence was just fantastic. I thought it was probably the best. I think that was the best that they had to offer throughout all of the live action that they've done in the last, I don't know, like 15
20 years.
Yeah.
They definitely put a lot of work into this. You could really tell. Like they really nailed it.
And it was like the choreography, plus, you know, like the characters stayed in character during the whole time.
Yeah.
Like everything that they did really felt like, example, like when the fight seemed over, which you're watching the show, you know it's not over. You know, maybe a normal person or a normal bad guy or whatever would probably double check to make sure that the job is done. But Anakin totally wouldn't. You know, like this isn't really Darth Vader. This is Anakin, and he totally would feel like so overconfident that he got the job done that he totally would just like take it at face value and walk away. You're just like,
yeah, got him.
Totally kill this Jedi Master easy, and just walks away. And I was like, yeah, you know what? Like, I couldn't even criticize that. Like, usually it's like that's just a bad movie villain trope, but for this, I really felt like it really stayed in character. And I was just like, yeah, Anakin totally would. What a selfish asshole.
I mean, you know who else did that? Obi-Wan did that to Anakin when he left him in the lava, right? So,
Yeah.
So I feel like there's a parallel there as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, while we're talking about the ending of that fight, I mean, I'd written a note down about how everything from the helmet being sliced off, which also mirrors Star Wars Rebels and his
that was my gripe, actually.
Duel with Ahsoka. This time it's the other half. This time it's not his right half, it's the left half. Okay, before I ask you about your gripe, I just gotta say, like, anytime Vader's helmet gets sliced off, it's never the full reveal of his helmet. Like we get this special moment. It's a very special moment, and it's kept special in Return of the Jedi when Luke removes the helmet and it's the full helmet, and you see his full face, right? And his eyes are no longer yellow, and his skin is somewhat healed, but you get a little more out of that, whereas we only see these shards of the character that he used to be. And anytime his helmet is sliced open like that, it's never the full thing. It's never the full picture of who this guy is behind the mask. It's just a piece of it, right? And anytime
piece of who he was.
Yeah, exactly. A piece of who he was. And it reflects in the dialogue too, because when he has his lines, when he says Anakin is gone, and he says that he's not his failure. He's not Obi-Wan's failure. He's like, I killed him, right? And Obi-Wan says, echoes a Luke Skywalker line. It says, then my friend is truly dead, right? Much like Luke says, and then my father is truly gone. And I thought it was such a cool thing.
Set of events is directly out of the comic, right? Where Anakin keeps getting flashbacks of his former life, and he decides to kill his former self.
Yeah, the Dark Lord of the Sith, Darth Vader comic books, absolutely. He goes through the process of mentally destroying Anakin Skywalker that's within him, right?
That dialogue exchange was absolutely wild to watch.
Oh yeah, I rewound it. I watched it over and over again, like 8 times in a row. I kept going back and redoing it.
It's my voicemail right now.
I definitely got choked up. I didn't bawl. But man, I don't know. I got really choked up when you could see the tears on one's face,
the sadness. Yeah.
And you could really feel it. It really like I could really sense it through my screen, and it really choked me up. And it's like, oh man, yeah. And not only that, but like it's the fact that you kind of had sometimes you watch the show and then you kind of forget that there's stuff afterwards. So you kind of like when you get sucked into it. So it's like, oh man. No, you could save Anakin. And then it's just like, no, wait.
That doesn't make sense.
No, it breaks canon. So I was like, oh, okay, this is like, it was really, really good. I really got choked up, and I thought you could really feel the innocence of Anakin coming through just for like the small bit of time.
Yeah.
There's a part of me that almost hoped they would connect for a second, right?
Yeah. Little hug action or something, I don't know. But,
yeah, for a moment there, I thought that was going to happen. I thought, Vader's like, all right, I'll come join you. I'm like, oh, wait, no, there's another, like, 3 movies after this. It's probably not going to happen.
The fight sequence got me, I don't know, I think that was definitely the best fight I think I've ever seen Star Wars do. Just everything. There was, like, just details. Like, like, him using the back of his hilt to, like, destroy Vader's, like, center console on his chest.
Yeah,
so
that was cool.
Yeah, he goes full asthma. He's just like, ugh, and he's just like gasping for air the whole time.
Yeah, that was cool. They pulled that sound effect right from Return of the Jedi when he's fighting Luke, right?
Yeah.
That noise.
It was. I thought it was cool because like the only way you can defeat Darth Vader is by like separating Vader from Anakin, which is basically destroying the machine. and that's kind of like what Obi-Wan went for first, and just decided to like, I don't know, if it's an accident or not, but destroying the center console to basically paralyze him.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
worked
I
on
thought,
Grievous too.
Yeah, I thought the show like did the best at like actually showcasing different Force abilities too. So like that scene where like Kenobi pushed Vader back reminded me of like that game trailer from the Force Unleashed like ages ago.
Yeah.
Where like he pushes him back into the wall, and also when Obi-Wan went into like God mode and started lifting all the rocks and started throwing them at him. It was so cool to see like that choreography put into the actual saber clashes as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's from the Old Republic too, right? The first Old Republic trailer.
Yeah, the Deceived trailer or something. The one on
when the female Jedi character like throws all the rocks at Darth Malgus, and he's like, ah, right?
Yeah,
it's really cool to see Obi-Wan like how powerful he is, right? Because he's supposed to be like, you know, number 2, number 3 top powerful Jedi. So it's cool to see like at that point he's finally like rediscovering
Jedi master
his power.
self.
Yeah, yeah.
But I had a little mixed feelings on that. I feel like they were forced to do that because we see Rey do that, right? In the sequel, she lifts all those rocks up so they can escape. And we never see any Jedi do that beforehand, like maybe 1 or 2 rocks, but never that many. So I felt like they had to bring up the former Jedi Masters to that same power level. And so on one hand, like it's cool. So, you know, I like it. And part of me is like, is this like, you know, power slide, you know, like if you play an MMO game, you know, like each generation, like the power gets a little higher.
I get where you're going with that. And I thought about that too. I thought about Rey's scene where she lifts all the rocks. And then I remembered Luke's line where he said, it's not about lifting rocks. And then I just forgot all about it because, you know, I trust Mark Hamill. But there was a scene earlier in this episode though, when Vader traps Obi-Wan beneath all of this rock and all of this boulder. And he has a really cool line where he says, your strength has returned, but but the weakness still remains. And that is why you will always lose. And then while he's buried under there, I had this moment where I thought back to Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, when Voldemort enters Harry's body and he's telling Harry Potter that he's alone and that he's just like hammering him with all of this stuff, this terrible memories. And he says, and that is why you will lose everything. And then Harry has this moment where he recovers himself and he kind of remembers that he's not alone. He's got all these friends and that Voldemort has no love in his life. And that's why he's going to lose, right? And Obi-Wan has a very similar moment when he's buried in this rock where he's being haunted by all these memories coming back to him about Anakin Skywalker. And much like it did in the earlier episodes, and it would get the better of him. But it's replaced with these good memories and this hope that Luke and Leia will one day be that hope, and that enables him to recover himself, and it really brings him up to that level again that he once was, and restores his connection completely to the Force, where he's able to lift those rocks like he would have been always. And then I was able to kind of get over the whole is this forced because of Rey's scene later on, but. That was just my reasoning for it, and I thought it was a really great character moment when he's able to do that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah,
it included me as well, like seeing when like Vader like put his hand down on the ground and like it created like that earthquake effect.
That was cool.
That was awesome.
Yeah. I think the only other time we kind of saw the two of them use like their Force abilities, like at least in the movies, if I remember right, it was like when they were on Mustafar and they were battling each other, and then like they try to force push each other out of the way.
Yeah.
I can't remember this.
Yeah, that's right. But and they both fly back. Yeah. Do you think Vader got force pushed too easily? I was kind of questioning that in the back of my head because he gets hit twice and he gets thrown against the rocks.
I don't know. I mean, I think like when we watch the if you throw in the Clone Wars into the mix, I think Obi-Wan's a really powerful guy. I mean. We see him force push General Grievous into the ceiling of this giant hangar. So, you know, it's definitely not. I don't know. I didn't think it was too unbelievable to kind of get by, especially with this whole like rejuvenated version of himself, right? Like he's finally able to. I mean, we're kind of
back
skipping
to his peak. Right?
Yeah, he's back to his peak.
He pushes him in the second half of the fight, right?
Yeah.
I think that part too is also. I feel like it's also part of like, Anakin's just like arrogance, possibly just not being prepared to face such a powerful Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Especially after the first confrontation.
Yeah, you expect a W at that point.
Well, and in the last episode, with all of the flashbacks that we got between the brotherhood of Obi-Wan and Anakin and their training sequence, it also kind of played a part in this duel as well, because when Obi-Wan does best Anakin eventually, after Anakin seems like he gets the better of him because of his pure strength and eagerness to win the battle, Obi-Wan, he does kind of outsmart him a little bit, but he says that ultimately, his the reason why he loses is because of his need to prove himself, and that is so far behind why Obi-Wan's fighting the fight. And anytime that there's a lightsaber duel happening, I always think of something that Dave said, which is why the fight needs to mean something. Like for a good lightsaber fight to go down, it needs to mean something, and that's what makes Duel of Fate such a great fight. That's what makes the Return of the Jedi fight such a great fight, because these two, you're rooting for a very specific outcome to happen, and each of those characters like fighting each other. It's not just because they're on two sides of the war. And it's supposed to look cool. It's just because they're so integrated, and this is Obi-Wan and Anakin we're talking about, and so it's a bunch of mixed feelings when you see those two duel, because you're almost rooting for both of them, because you want to see Anakin redeemed, and you want to see Obi-Wan survive and this and that. But I think the fight's got to mean something. So that was something that was really, really clear watching this fight, is that every single line and every single moment that these characters had in that duel meant the world to the story, which was a success in my opinion, for sure, when it comes to executing such a feat.
But how do you explain them being this crazy of a duel, and then in A New Hope they're just kind of like light sword fighting?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah,
old age.
Yeah,
Obi-Wan wants to die. He wants to become a Force ghost, like his teacher.
There's definitely some things about this whole series, of course, that does open up some plot holes later, if you want to call them that. I mean, the relationship between Leia and Obi-Wan is presented very differently in A New Hope, when she very kind of non-personally sends that message on behalf of her father. And it's like, years ago you served my father in the Clone Wars? Like, yeah, years ago he saved your life as well. So, I mean,
yeah.
What's the deal, right? So, I mean, there's some things obviously that we, as it's such an old movie, A New Hope, that there's things that are just inevitably going to come up that are like, oh, well, there's a bit of a disconnect there. Kind of like how Obi-Wan doesn't remember all the times he hung out with R2-D2.
I think it's pretty common with Star Wars, is if you're gonna fully enjoy the universe, you have to kind of
let some things slide,
live and you have to live and let live, and like kind of realize that some things happen because of real world, restrictions.
Yeah.
But you can still, like, I still love that fight between old Ben Kenobi and Darth Vader. Like, you don't see that, that kind of like swordplay is still very cool to me. Just as cool as, jumping around and doing backflips. Sometimes that can seem kind of cheesy to me. It's cool to see a more like samurai influenced slow fight,
which that's more or less the point I'm getting at, is when we see Obi-Wan, and I'd say Vader's probably consistent, but Obi-Wan specifically, when we see him duel in Rebels, it is very samurai, and when we see him specifically fight Darth Maul, whereas I felt like this was maybe a little too prequel-y.
Sure,
but again, it's not really the dueling I have an issue with. It's more just the power creep of Force powers, I think. But on the other hand, it was really cool. But I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it.
So I'm going to bring up a new debate here. The outcome that I thought initially when this fight went down was Obi-Wan gets buried and Vader walks away, and I thought that was going to be it. I honestly thought that was it.
I almost think it should have been the end, to be honest.
Because in A New Hope we get this moment where it almost seems like Tarkin is surprised that Obi-Wan is still alive, right?
So is Vader,
and Vader is Obi-Wan is here. I must face him alone, and he hasn't felt his presence since, and then he kind of trails off, and he doesn't seem as surprised that Obi-Wan's alive, but Tarkin is very surprised that he's alive, and more so that he's on the Death Star. And so to me, I was like, okay, well, the outcome that we get now, I don't know who told Tarkin what, but someone lied about something because, obviously he got away, right? So that I think was the biggest thing that came up. Mind you, I still love how it was resolved. I just thought that I was genuinely like, oh, it's over. This is how he fakes his death and surprises everyone when he pops up later. But Kirk, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I think maybe Tarkin wasn't as involved with the Inquisition and like the elimination of the Jedi throughout Order 66, and he didn't really get updated in that type of area, perhaps. But I thought it was to me at least, I thought it was quite a nice ending because it kind of goes back to Vader's quote, when I left you, I was but the learner, now I'm the master. So I guess like that can be interpreted in different ways. Like, did Vader mean that when he left the light side during episode 3, or, did he mean that when he last met up with Kenobi, which would have been this battle just here? So I thought it could work in a different way, in a couple different ways. But like, I also understand how some people are like, oh, I'm not too sure how Tarkin would be surprised in terms of Kenobi being alive and other aspects like that. But overall, I think going back to what you mentioned right at the start, how they've got a lot of loopholes that they need to get through when creating stories in between other content that's already been made. I think they did a pretty good job, but like in the end, like they're not going to escape every single possibility and link everything to canon. So I was overall pretty satisfied.
Yeah, great. Yeah, Blake, you had some things to say on this.
Yeah, this is something that I was actually pretty bothered with as well. I feel like I'm just bringing up all the bad stuff. I'm on the wrong side because I really liked it. I thought it was really cool, and I loved all the moments and the drama.
Yeah.
But for me, the biggest issues it was not connected well enough to New Hope, and I think that's why I wouldn't be surprised if we got another season to try to do that.
Right.
Like, I really felt, I brought this up in previous episodes about the series, I really felt like Vader should have won by the end, and Kenobi should have either faked his death or narrowly survived. And so when he was buried by the rocks, I thought that would have been the end. And if it had been the end, I feel it would have connected better.
Right.
So in that case, what do you think Vader's quote would have been, like in reference to like in A New Hope when he said like, when I left you? Do you think that was referring to maybe the end of Revenge of the Sith? It could have been gone back to many different things, I guess.
Yeah, you're right. That line would become a little awkward. It's a tricky situation, isn't it?
It is.
Try and check all the boxes.
A way to kind of decipher it, like you said, Kirk. I mean, it can be deciphered in so many different ways, and it's really one of those things that I think comes down to the audience perception. But one way for me to kind of look at it, at least, is when that fight is over and he's like screaming out Obi-Wan's name, like Obi-Wan, and it's like, it was just first of all, it was just so cool to like hear that. But secondly, it was just one of those really tragic moments, of course, to deepen the tragedy when we hear Obi-Wan in the Revenge of the Sith duel, we hear him say that, as tears are running down his face, that he was the chosen one, and that, he was his brother, and that he loved him, and he never says sorry, and it never really bothered me. And then I saw this show, and I was like, this is so good. Like, it just, when he walks away, he just can't deal with it. He's just done. He doesn't even care to kill this whatever relic that has become Darth Vader. Like, Anakin is gone, and he's just accepted that, and he doesn't have the hatred or the motive to kill whatever this thing is. And he just says, I'm sorry for all of it. and it's like this. It's the one line that I think like he never delivered in Revenge of the Sith that almost felt like it could have been, but it didn't happen, and it just felt like it was so in place. And when it comes down to that whole line later in A New Hope, when Vader refers to how he left Obi-Wan, I don't know, it can be deciphered in so many different ways. Like how Obi-Wan walks away from that duel. He could have gone after Obi-Wan. He was just injured and I guess decided not to. But in that moment, I think he learned something, and he learned one last time just the lesson that Obi-Wan was trying to teach him in that flashback sequence. And it could be a moment of learning for him, so that later in A New Hope, when they do face off again, he knows what he's gonna do, and he knows that he's not going to be as eager and forthright with his rage and strength to try and overcome Obi-Wan, because he knows that's not going to work. So it could be a moment of recognition of that, right? And I don't know. Again, it could be deciphered so many ways. That's definitely not fact. That's just my thoughts.
Like the second time Anakin fights Dooku, same thing.
Yeah,
like mirror that the first and second fight.
Right. Exactly. So so many again. Yeah, like you said, Kirk. So many ways to decipher it, but it's one of those great things in Star Wars that people get to just perceive it as they will and share their opinions on it, and that's what creates great discussion. So. There's a great moment later in this episode when we have actually one last thing. Obi-Wan, when he leaves, he says goodbye, Darth, and I just thought it was so perfect because that's what he says in A New Hope, and I was like, it's like that little sting, it's like a little insult, like he doesn't care to even say Vader, he's not saying Anakin, he's just Darth, goodbye, Darth.
Yeah.
Like, can't even deal with it.
You're just another one, right? You're just another one of the Darths.
Yeah, just another Darth. Just another absolute. Yeah.
It's funny because that was always a fan theory as an explanation, right? So it's kind of cool to see that become canon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was also like a coping mechanism for Kenobi as well, to be like, oh, my friend and my brother's gone. Like this is some other guy now, so he could be more at peace, I guess. Yeah, a way to address him without digging up in emotion. Yeah.
Why didn't Obi-Wan just finish the job again?
I know. That's what I was thinking about the whole time. I was just like, you have him. You've established that he's no longer Anakin. Like, this has been established by you at this point. Like, I understand that he still has feelings for Anakin and he doesn't want to kill his friend, but I feel like before he left, he was like, oh yeah, like he said, I can't remember the line he says, but he acknowledges that Anakin's dead. That all that's left is Darth Vader. So I'm like, why? Just kill him. Just he's right there.
just finish it. All the evil he's done.
To say, but like in that situation, that'd be like pretty brutal if you just cut him in half, right? Like
Count Dooku.
I think it's very Jedi ending. To think, right?
I will say
he he gives up his attachment to this creature, right? And he feels very sorry for, just like Harry Potter. You mentioned Harry Potter. Harry Potter feels very sorry for Voldemort, right? He's just like, man, I pity this thing. Like, I don't need to like kill it because he's kind of dead like already.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like killing what's left of what was there is almost gonna only do bad for Obi-Wan, right? And
for him.
Yeah, for him, right? Yeah. And it's something very unique and special to note, because when he says to Reva later in the episode, he says you're free. We're both free. And Obi-Wan is talking about himself when he says, like, I'm free as well. He's like, he's free of being haunted by these tragic things that have happened to his friend. He's let go, right? And he's finally done what Yoda said to Anakin for advice. He's finally let go of everything he feared to lose. And that's what makes a Jedi, right? Is that, you let go of that attachment that holds you back, in a possessive way, because that's what caused Anakin to go down the path of the dark side, right? And it's the dark place that we see Obi-Wan in at the very beginning of the series, and he's finally let that go, in the sense that he was able to lift those rocks and finally kind of break free and be the Jedi who he is again. So
and the Jedi he's going to become, like Obi-Wan becomes a very non-violent Jedi. Like he becomes a very like he becomes like a monk, right?
Right.
And I think, I don't know, you can kind of say violence begets violence. Like if he kills Darth Vader, Palpatine's just gonna get like possibly find another like apprentice, right? Like
that's a valid point.
Like maybe Obi-Wan's like, you know what? Maybe I'll just let this guy live, and I don't know. Arguably, you can always, I'm sure the thousands of rebellion soldiers are going to say differently. Like, yeah, maybe you should.
Yeah, well, you could have finished him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say my mental gymnastics to try to like explain it was, I guess I was thinking to a Jedi only fights defensively. They don't like kill someone who's helpless. And that would kind of correlate to the Anakin Dooku fight and Revenge of the Sith, where Anakin decides to just cut off Dooku's head, even though he should be like arrested, right?
Well, same with the I dare say Episode 9, like when Rey and Palpatine have their thing, right? It's like, yeah, you must strike him down. She refuses not to. It's like, well, he's like right there. I mean, just do it, end it all, right? But yeah, it's just one of those moments where it's just like, well, no, it's not what the Jedi would do, and she's giving that up to preserve herself as this person who fights on behalf of the light side, and not necessarily just for themselves, or there's got to be a reason for I guess the kill, right?
So much for the greater good.
Yeah, I guess so. So much like we see Obi-Wan come full circle, Vader comes full circle in this as well, because Diego, it was Diego who mentioned to me, who was our after show host on the Clone Wars Talk sub-series that we did for quite a while on this podcast. He mentioned to me, why didn't we hear the Vader theme song more? And the music, right? Like, I mean, what happened to all the music from the trailer, and but mostly he was kind of bothered that we didn't hear the Vader theme song for a very good chunk of the show. And then finally in this last sequence we get the very famous, Palpatine cameo in the hologram, and Vader on his throne and everything. They have a bit of a moment of reminder where Vader fully commits himself again to the Emperor's wishes, and it's almost like he was telling him off for continuously pursuing Obi-Wan, because it's distracting him from being the best Sith Lord he could be, I guess.
Seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah, see the bigger
picture. They stomped out the rebellion.
Exactly. But it's just...
Was it... Sorry, this is a side note, so you finish.
Oh, well, we finally get the theme song. Like, we finally get the Vader theme song in that moment. It's like, it's just come full circle for Vader. It's like we heard it when he was born as Vader, and now we've heard it again when he's kind of, I guess, been scolded about his activities, and now he's become more of the Vader that we will see later, is what I meant. So, yeah.
I was going to say, was it just me, or did the Emperor look wrong?
Not enough wrinkles?
I was trying to figure it out. I think it was the eyes, because they had color in his eyes. I feel like that was the issue, but I wasn't 100% sure. I just know it didn't look correct for how we see him. And I guess now Empire Strikes Back, but originally Return of the Jedi.
Yeah,
I think he did look a little bit strange, in the sense that, like, obviously since Jedi has been for 30 plus years.
Return of the Jedi?
Yeah, but he looked closer in Revenge of the Sith than he did here.
Yeah,
it's all makeup, right?
Like the original Palpatine before
monkey eyes.
Him. Yeah, he almost looked more similar to that, and more similar to like how he looked in Return of the Jedi to me, like the original prosthetics in Return of the Jedi. But I don't know, they're trying to do something weird, and he looked kind of weird.
It really took me.
My favorite part was the whole, like, to me it kind of made an arc of just having Anakin and Vader, seeing the transition from the earlier movies to the original trilogy to this now, kind of in between, and then the original trilogy. I'm like, oh man, like what a good arc of him starting off and then just going to the dark side and then finally overcoming through time and then finally defeating the Emperor and killing the Emperor for good.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh man, what a great story arc. And then I remembered that the Emperor was alive, like he survived. I was,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
sequels.
Yeah.
so it's just like, oh no. I was like, oh man, it's like it put like a nice like little bow on everything. It kind of rounded everything out, and I was like, oh yeah, like Darth Vader's arc is so cool. Like at the end, he went back and defeated the arch enemy who so happened to have lived. I guess it was all in vain at the end.
We can be thankful at least that this show made context within the George Lucas saga. I mean, because building out a story within the George Lucas saga is truly, you know, it's risky, right? I mean, you know, there's a lot of people's feelings attached to those 6 movies. So I think that's what made Rogue One so special, because it was just, at least for most of us, it was just one of those, you know, Disney came out with their movies. It was the second one they released, and it was the first one that took place within that context. And when they knocked it out of the park with just some of the things that they did in that story to just connect the dots to A New Hope, it's almost like you can't watch the Star Wars movies now without that being included in your playlist, right? Like it's just so good when it comes to telling the story that exists before and really a story about sacrifice. This was such a great scene with the Emperor because you know, bring it up again, but the idea that each of these characters that we've been seeing the story arcs take place over the show, Vader and Obi-Wan, they both get the cameos of their guides or their leads in life, you know, having a word with them, whether it's Qui-Gon leading Obi-Wan or the Emperor leading Vader. We both get that quick little cameo at the end from each of those influences in their life, right? So that was definitely a nice parallel for sure.
I think both these characters just get some really good advice from their best friends, being like, look, man, I know you went through this hard breakup, but you know, you just got to let go. Okay. You got to like forget about this person. You got to move on.
Move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. It was kind of similar to the conversation he has about Luke Skywalker. Like, I wonder if your feelings on this matter are clear, Lord Vader, you know?
Yeah, I mean, Anakin has always had an issue with attachment, right?
Yeah, he's a passionate guy, and so yeah, it just follows him as a curse, like wherever he goes.
Yeah. Falls in the same trap, over and over again.
Yeah.
Before we get too far, I do want to quickly go back to the Vader mask thing.
Sure.
Did you guys watch Rebels?
Yeah.
No, so that's why, like, when you guys were talking about the mask, I was like, I don't know what you guys were talking about. I thought this was amazing as a first time viewer.
I feel like we gotta watch this. Then, like, Josh, you gotta pull it up, play the audio. We gotta take a quick break and watch this because this is like a 1-for-1 thing. Like, it's pretty important.
Kirk, you got some thoughts on this?
On the mask
the
part,
demasking,
yeah. The one thing I came from it was how although like Kenobi and Ahsoka, they both use violence and they could only remove half of his mask, but it took Luke to actually get through to Vader through I don't want to say the word love.
Compassion.
Compassion. That was the only way to remove the mask, and I thought that it took him the only one to remove the full mask. So yeah, I thought that was cool, and I have to admit, I only picked up on that after I saw some pictures online and stuff of people sharing it. I didn't think of it then, but obviously it was really cool to see that the writers and the team who made the show actually probably put that into consideration.
Right.
You know, I never actually thought about like that, where if both the former people of his life weren't able to bring him back to who he was as Anakin, but Luke was, and he takes off the mask. That's actually a really good parallel. I like that.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, because like, okay, we should watch it. We should watch it.
I got the audio
because it's such a big deal.
I got the audio here. All right,
we need to look at it though. Like,
oh yeah,
shares links.
Let me just look. Well, I just pulled it up on Disney, so I don't have like a specific link. But for those of you who've seen the Star Wars Rebels episode that we're talking about, you'll kind of know what's going on. So Ahsoka and Vader have this fight. And Ahsoka runs up and slices off a section of Vader's helmet. So let's just take a quick listen. See, there's a parallel there with how Obi-Wan says Anakin, you know, when he sees his face behind the mask.
I won't leave.
Such cool sound mixing.
Not this time.
Both times.
Yeah.
Then you will die.
And that's the same line that he says to Obi-Wan when they start the fight. And that's the last of the dialogue. So, yeah, lots of parallels between both fights with each of those people that had such an influence in Anakin's life.
And you know, part of me expected them to just lift this scene like right out of Rebels because it's so good, and to have it again between the other person that's so important, Anakin, just makes so much drama and is such a cool story element. But at the same time, part of me is like, why? It's weird that it happens twice.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you know, there's. I guess the way that I would put it is it's two different people that mean different things to this character, and redemption is really the only thing that you can do to someone like Vader, because there's no other way to save him, right? Unless you just, and you know, killing him isn't saving him either. So it's just a visual kind of parallel to the attempt that's being made in the process of this fight, right? And
I agree with that side of it, but to me, because this happens twice, all I can think of is Darth Vader needs to work on guarding his face better.
Darth Vader needs to work on guarding his arms and his legs better too, but he's not so great at that.
Yeah, he doesn't have a very good guard.
Would you say that Kenobi got closer to Vader, at least defeating him or turning him than Ahsoka did in Rebels?
No, I think the attempt is made on. I think Ahsoka even pulled a little more of an attempt at saying that they. I don't know. It's almost like she had a bit more compassion when it came to not fighting at first, and because she refuses to leave him and just defends herself in the process of the fight. Whereas Obi-Wan,
in her defense, that was her first attempt at it. Well, Anakin has already done it once on Mustafar.
Right? Exactly. Yeah.
Sorry, Obi-Wan.
Exactly. Obi-Wan's already. So each of them have had that moment already where they tried to pull Vader back, right? And Vader talks about that later to Luke when he says, Obi-Wan once thought as you do. And then he kind of turns around and says, you don't know the power of the dark side. And he's still just lost, right? But it's Luke's attempt at bringing his father back that works. And so each of them have this moment where it's like, Obi-Wan, attempt, fail, Ahsoka, attempt, fail. And then Luke is a success because, this is his son. And Vader realizes he loves his son. And it's Luke's compassion for his father that allows that connection to work. Yeah, I mean, as far as the attempts go, I think each of them had their attempt, and both of them tried what they could, and ultimately neither of them killed Vader in the process of also doing that. So I would say it's about on equal ground for sure. I mean, Ahsoka meant so much to Vader as well, being his apprentice, that when that fight starts, Vader says, "We need not be adversaries." It was foretold you would be here. We need not be adversaries. The Emperor will show you mercy. And then, it's not until that she says something in regards to Anakin becoming Vader that he really kind of then says, well, if you won't join me, then he basically does what he does to Obi-Wan, where Obi-Wan gives him offers, like, why are you doing this? Come back. And then he says, no, I will kill you. And ultimately, that fight ends off with Anakin saying, I hate you, to Obi-Wan, whereas the fight between him and Ahsoka, has a bit more of a soft start to it, and then it also ends with this big explosion, and neither of them kill each other, right? So I think Ahsoka was a bit closer, to pulling Vader back, but Luke ultimately is always the one to have redeemed his father. So, Yeah. Obi-Wan tells Leia the gifts that she's inherited of her mother and father. And it was just a really nice moment to see that, because it's a healing moment for Obi-Wan to be able to talk about Anakin in the way that he does to his daughter, and let her know these are the good things that I remember about my friend, you know. Did you guys like, was this an emotional moment for you? Because like it was also one of those things for me that I was just like, kind of like how Phil put it like earlier, is like the fight kind of made you well up a little bit. And then there was this moment, I was like, oh man, like, yeah, it's just gets you going. But yeah, what were you guys
like Harry
thoughts on
Potter hearing about his parents.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was so nice. I hope someone makes a compilation on YouTube one day, like where it has that speech, but then cuts between different shots between the Clone Wars and the prequels. I think I definitely felt like that was like the peak emotional point for me, at least watching the final episode. So it'd be cool to see. I can't remember each of the 3 words Kenobi used to describe Padme and Anakin, but I can imagine someone making a video of like, you know, different shots from throughout the
like a
stuff.
little montage.
Showing like, you know, the different things. Like I think Anakin was like passionate. I can't remember what he said, but yeah, like those things, and then showcases like all the different stuff in the past. But yeah, I loved it. I thought it was really nice, and especially Leia's reaction. What was the actress's name for Leia? But she did an amazing job.
Oh, she did. It's such a great job. Truth be told, I actually never looked it up, but she was fantastic.
She definitely felt like Leia the whole time, like unquestioningly.
Oh yeah.
I absolutely hate child actors, but she did. but however, she did do a good job.
Phil, I thought your favorite movie was Richie Rich.
Yeah.
Here, it's Baby Geniuses, obviously.
No, that's what it was. Sorry, my mistake.
I've got the audio here, Kirk. Let me just quickly play it here.
Leia, when I said before that I didn't know your parents, Princess Leia Organa, you are wise, discerning, kind-hearted. These are qualities that came from your mother. But you're also passionate and fearless, forthright. And these are gifts from your father. Both were exceptional people who bore an exceptional daughter. I wish I could tell you more.
Yeah, it's so good. It's
you notice how he doesn't admit that he lied? He like kind of quickly skips over that part.
Yeah. Well,
hashtag Obi-Wan's a liar.
Yeah, we're starting a new hashtag, Kirk. It's called Obi-Wan's a liar. It's just all the moments that he lies throughout the entire thing. Yeah.
From a certain point of view, does not question it.
Yeah.
I think it's another good scene that shows that not only did Obi-Wan have a lot of like love for Anakin, that he also loved like Padme, right? Like like their relationship and that kind of triangle they have is like super strong, right? As like even if it's just platonic, right?
Yeah.
Like the way that he talked like at the start of the series when he says, "I wish I could have been your father," right? Like says something like that. I don't know. It just makes it even more emotional, right? Where there's these two people that he really cares about, and he's getting to like interact with their daughter, but yet he can't say. It's very, very, very cool.
Especially
so much baggage.
Especially like spoilers for the end of Clone Wars in season 7, where Kenobi we see him actually know that Anakin and Padme are kind of doing stuff in the background. I think it definitely. It's not a callback to that, but yeah, I think it's definitely kind of heightens it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Obi-Wan being there, of course, when Padme gives birth and dies, and hearing her last words of there is good in him. And Obi-Wan was the only one there other than him holding baby Leia in his arms. that there's, you know, he hears those words from her. Her almost like a dying wish that she insists that there is good in him, right? And it really plays up, I think, also in that moment when he decides to leave Vader and not kill what's left of his old friend. But yeah, it's just a very powerful moment for sure when he talks about her parents and like you said, Bryce, like the fondness and the caring and the love that he had for that person. Padme obviously meant a lot, like a great deal to Obi-Wan as well. There was a really cool moment as well when he meets young Luke, you know, for the first time. Finally gives him the toy that he plays with later in A New Hope, the little Skyhopper toy. And he says, "Hello there," and you know,
Classic.
I thought, like, yeah, and I thought it was so good because later, of course, when he saves Luke from the Tuskens, Luke recognizes him, but he's kind of like in a bit of a daze and just kind of, you know, I mean, he recognizes Obi-Wan in his old age, but he's just also surprised to see him. And it's like, okay, well, he's obviously met him before. You know, Owen hasn't quite held him back from meeting Obi-Wan at all. But I thought that was a nice connection, for sure. Either of you guys notice that as well? I'll take that as no. And lastly, Obi-Wan's connection is finally like fully restored when he's able to communicate with Qui-Gon, who leads him to his new place of refuge, which I assume is the place that he sets up like a hut and stuff. And he shows up and he's like, "Well, took you long enough." And
yeah, was that actually Liam Neeson? Like, it wasn't like a face replacement, right? It was.
That was Liam Neeson. Yeah, that's Liam.
That was cool.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah,
I didn't know Force Ghosts aged.
Yeah, because if you go back to episode 6, you know, I thought you were reverted back to your youth, right?
Right? Yeah. Well, I guess that only works for Anakin.
I guess. But no, I was actually I was super happy to see it, and it was actually something I really wanted to see more of in the series. That was like my only, like, that's not true actually. I say only, but it was one of my disappointments was that I really wanted to see more Qui-Gon because he's one of the characters I like the most in the prequels. I didn't. I'm not like a big. I like the prequels, but I'm not like a big fan of them. And I really thought the best part in Episode 1 was Qui-Gon. And
Isn't that funny though? How that's also one of the biggest issues with the sequels is we never see any of the other Force ghosts. We never see Qui-Gon. We never see Obi-Wan or Anakin. Like Hayden Christensen should have been in that as a Force ghost. It would have made so much sense.
It would have.
Sequels?
It would have certainly been really cool to see those characters. It's possible though that this series though I think paid service to that decision as to why they didn't have the Force ghosts in those movies because it was Obi-Wan's connection with the Force that was disturbed, that he couldn't see him, right? Because Qui-Gon says, "I was always here, Obi-Wan. You just weren't ready to see." And that is so 100% Luke Skywalker in Episode 8. Like he was disconnected from the Force. He couldn't perceive those people, right? Which is all the more confusing when Yoda shows up just out of the blue. But I guess desperate times, right? But it was just one of those things. I was like, yeah, I guess so. I guess they don't just show up when he would want them to, based on just that dialogue. It's like, well, if their connection to the Force is kind of like disrupted and not fully there, then they can't make that connection. And it takes a great deal of discipline and training to be able to communicate with the Force ghosts, like how Yoda puts it in Episode 3. So, yeah, but it was so good to see, Qui-Gon back. I'm glad you guys all like that as well.
100%.
Yeah.
At this point, I half expect them to just skip over it. So I'm really glad they decided to at least put something in.
They teased it enough where I thought it was like well past due. They teased it so much that I was like, I gave up hope, forgot about it, and then it popped up at the end. I was like, awesome!
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I thought the show was going to end like at 3 different points, like during the last like 10 minutes. So when he came, I'm like, thank goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. Fellas, is there any last minute things that you want to bring up before we wrap it up here?
Do we think it's necessary for season 2?
I don't know. It's gonna be a tough sell because you can't have Darth Vader and Obi-Wan fight a million more times. Like, every time they do it, the final fight loses significance, right?
If there was no Vader to Obi-Wan contact, that'd be awesome because I do want to see more. Because like I've mentioned in previous episodes, I feel like although it's just like a mini series, it dragged a bit too much in my opinion on the whole Leia to Obi-Wan relationship.
Yeah.
It felt less like Obi-Wan's series and more of like a, I don't know, half an Obi-Wan series and half a Leia series.
Yeah.
However, I still thoroughly enjoyed it. The last 2 episodes were absolutely amazing. So I do kind of want to see some more, but if they don't, I'll be very satisfied.
It's got to be done right? Like that's the main thing. Can't just do it for the sake of more Disney views.
Right.
If it was like a small, the thing is, I don't even know what they would do as far as stories. It would have to be, I think it would end up being more artsy than anything, more like focused around Qui-Gon or something maybe. But otherwise, I think they maybe should just leave it. And I don't know. They have so many other series that I want to watch. So
Maybe the spin-off will be more about Reva because she's just like,
that could be kind of cool.
Now she's a Jedi again, and what happens?
Small thing too is just like they had that scene where she was just like groveling, I guess, or whatever on the ground, and then that's it. You never we didn't get like a really conclusion at all with that character. She just disappeared at the ending. There was no like
second season is he gives her a little bit of training or something and sends her.
That'd be
to do
cool.
Stuff.
Maybe, yeah.
And she starts helping the rebellion or whatever, or they do the same thing that they did with Ezra and just send her off to deep space and she just never shows up again.
Hey, seeing a game like Jedi Fallen Order with her character as a main character would be kind of cool as well. I mean, I'd be down for something like that.
Awesome.
Yeah. Kirk, we got some exciting news, of course, from you earlier about the Star Wars Orbitkey lineup. All our listeners should definitely go and check out orbitkey.com/pages/star-wars and sign up for those newsletters, I guess. Is that still going to exist on Wednesday, or is that just going to be the same page that shows us all the details on this new stuff?
You've got it spot on. That's right.
Awesome.
Nice.
Classic Josh. Squeaky clean.
That's right.
Well, guys, it's all been a huge pleasure, and Kirk, has been amazing to meet you and have you on here. You're a huge Star Wars fan. It's great to hear that these Star Wars products are coming from the places of Star Wars fans. You know, that always makes us all feel really great when all the care gets put into this product. So, and it was great to hear all your opinions on Obi-Wan Kenobi. Same with you, Bryce, Phil, and Blake. I guess we will all catch you in the next one. And Kirk, we'll see you again sometime. You're always welcome back.
Thanks so much, guys. It was awesome to meet you all and chat Star Wars.
All right. May the Force be with you guys. All right, and to all our listeners at home, we hope you enjoyed this Star Wars after show review series for the Disney Plus Obi-Wan Kenobi. I mean, lots of speculation going on about spin-offs and season 2s and whatever else, but let us know. I mean, our email is swescapepodcast@gmail.com, and you can follow our Twitter at swescapepodcast as well. Make sure you check out that URL. I'm going to drop it in the description of this podcast episode for Orbitkey. And be sure to follow their Twitter feed as well, which I believe is at Orbitkey. Very straightforward. So you get all those quick updates on the Star Wars merch, all those key organizers. Make sure you pick one up. And we're super excited for the next batch of content on the podcast. I know we still got to go back and do a whole episode on deleted scenes for the anthology films. That includes Solo, Rogue One, Clone Wars, Rebels, whatever we can dig up. We're going to head back in there. And I believe we also have a future episode on the roster for honoring the return of the prequels, which is going to be a highlight. I know Phil's going to love it. So I put it on the calendar for right around the corner. And we got some new voices joining us that episode as well, some friends of ours. So I guess until next time, may the Force be with you, and we will catch you in the next episode.